everybody. Welcome back to Humans of Campus Housing. My name is Leo, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Ben. Hey, Ben, how's it going?
Hey Leo, doing well. We're in the summer months, and so it's that time where we're winding down from the previous year and amping up and getting ready for the next year. So we got summer projects going on. We got camps and conferences. We have 16,000 people coming through FSU for orientation, and so it's been busy. And I'm about to get busy, about to start doing some traveling for CHO and Akuhoai, and actually going to be heading out to our guests' way out in Seattle and in July for NHTI. So excited to do some traveling this summer.
And I think that is a huge understatement. That's 16,000 people. That's a lot.
It is.
How do you manage all of this? This is so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they run a 3-day system, so they move in one day, they have some activities, and then they do a full day of programming with our orientation team, uh, getting exposed to resources and their academic schedules and everything like that. And then they have their last day. The students actually go and register for their fall classes. So we'll see, 400 to 500 students in a session plus their families. So like this week we did 4 sessions. There's a lot of students, and it's just how a large university operates their orientation system, and it's quite the machine to see all the different moving parts. So it's fun to be a part of. I get to go and do a session, probably about one out of every four. I get to talk to the parents about the transition that their students are going through. So I really enjoy getting to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that. And good luck with all of that. That sounds really
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Well, today we're going to be actually diving into something that's on everybody's radar, it seems, and that's AI. So, unless you've been living under a rock, you know exactly what that is. But today we're going to be asking, what does AI or artificial intelligence actually mean for campus housing? And let's get a little bit real. We want to understand a little bit more about how is this useful? What is this and how is it, used? Is this just another tech trend? And so to help us answer these questions, we are super thrilled to be joined by somebody with some great insight on both student affairs and the tech side of things. And that's Craig Whitton, who is the Director of Student Affairs at North Island College and also the founder and president of Authentic Consulting and Training. Craig has been really thinking about the how AI can be applied thoughtfully in the world of higher education and especially in campus housing. So, with that said, Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Leo. It's good to be here, and it's nice to be here with you as well, Ben. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad you're here.
Yeah, so before we jump into the big stuff, Craig, can you give our listeners a little bit of a background on your experience with AI and how you got interested into it and where does it intersect with your work in student affairs?
Sure. I've always been, as student housing professionals will often relate to, we're often asked to do a lot of things with limited budgets. And so early on in my career, I learned that leveraging technology to enhance our ability to deliver exceptional experiences to our students is a great force multiplier when it comes to those limited resources. Because me on my own can only do X amount per day, but me with a computer and web chat and a few other things like that can do X plus some amount. And so for my entire career, I've been pretty keyed into the technological implications in our field. More recently, after starting Authentic Consulting and Training, which is a leadership consulting company, I started looking at how to lead through disruption, because that's been a big focus of my work in terms of my higher ed career, has been leading through big changes at various institutions I worked at. And so when you're leading through these disruptions, how do you do it in a good way? Because the fact of the matter is that whether something is highly disruptive or completely transformative, my work demonstrates that it's sort of the same process, but the difference is, are your people psychologically safe through that change as much as you can help them be that way? And how are you leading through that change? And the leadership often influences that first one. And so I spent a fair bit of time looking at upcoming disruptors, and it's really clear in the world of higher education that artificial intelligence is the biggest disruptor that our field is going to face on the horizon. It's bigger than housing crises, it's bigger than federal funding changes, it's bigger than those kinds of things, because it fundamentally changes our business. And our business is transferring knowledge from people who have it to people who want to have it so they can go on and live life in a way that's intentional for them. And artificial intelligence, as it sits today, dramatically changes how that process happens. And so it's having a profound effect on every aspect of the academy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you see AI fitting into campus housing right now? And what are some of the first things that come to mind in terms of impact or opportunities?
Right. Well, right now, I'm sure that a lot of my colleagues at other institutions are probably having the same sort of conversation. They've heard about AI, they're keen to get in to try it, and they're being told, well, let's wait. We need policy, procedure, protocol, and how we use artificial intelligence. The other area of conversation that I'm hearing a lot about is around artificial intelligence and how it's used in academic integrity violations. And I would say that these are very important conversations to have, but the implications are far more significant long term. And to give you an example of what I mean by that is artificial intelligence is basically showing us there's a very cynical lens out there that says that these are just pattern matching machines that are essentially outputting words that statistically are likely to match. And that's largely true for the large language models and these types of tools. However, the way in which they do that is so sophisticated and advanced that the thoughts and the concepts that these LLMs are putting together are coherent. They're sometimes prone to hallucinations, but they are actually reasonably good. And the question becomes, at what point is artificial intelligence a viable teacher or instructor? And that's a very important question for our field to answer right now, because it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be better economically and for the business than having a human being doing that work when it comes to like transmitting technical knowledge. So if you're a subject matter expert on medicine or engineering or anything like that, you can work at a college or university and teach students about the technical aspects of engineering or medicine or what have you. But artificial intelligence dramatically changes, as I said earlier, how that process works, where students can jump on ChatGPT and say, teach me everything I need to know at a first year engineering course or something like this. And ChatGPT has the ability to do a course outline. It has the ability to do deep dives into each element of that course outline. But most importantly, the student can keep asking questions over and over and over again until the student feels they understand the subject matter appropriately. And the AI is never going to get tired. It's never going to only be limited to office hours, and it's never going to get impatient or tell the person that they have to do self-study in order to understand it better, which are stories we hear from our students from time to time, although we know the majority of faculty are incredibly dedicated to supporting our students being successful. So what I'm saying here isn't that AI will replace faculty, but what I am saying is that AI changes the role that faculty have. If every post-secondary institution has roughly equal transmission of these technical details or the skills that you need throughout your degree, diploma, or certificate, what is the role of the faculty member? Because it's no longer to transmit those technical details, but it becomes the much harder thing of helping you as a human develop and understand how do you bring these technical details to life as a human being in your career. So it's much more focusing on the soft skills, teaching people to be decent community members. How do you resolve conflict? How do you get along with each other? That's the evolving role of faculty in an AI-powered institution. And again, that is the direction that our field is likely going in. And so to wrap this back to your question, Leo, about what is the impact on campus housing, when every institution in the world has a roughly same sort of realm of technical details being transmitted, so that whether you go to a very like high caliber institution in a big major city or a smaller institution in a more rural area, if both of them are teaching the technical content using an AI platform, well, then you're probably getting more or less the same technical learning outcomes from both of those schools. Right now, we know that students typically pick institutions because, a degree from this institution will really help my future career. But what I'm talking about is basically like an equalization of that entire decision-making paradigm. So then students are going to be making different decisions, and they're going to decide on institutions based on what institution gives me the best possible experience. And so wrapping this back to campus housing, that is our whole thing, is we provide exceptional, safe learning, positive campus experiences that teach students how to get along with community, how to resolve conflict, how to embrace their own identity and become the person that they are choosing to be. Like that's the stuff we've been doing in housing for decades, and that is soon to become the differentiator between what makes a really great school for a student versus what makes your typical average student, because this technical instructional piece is dramatically changing. So I see the opportunity with artificial intelligence is that student affairs folks, particularly in housing, but in other student services, have the opportunity to really share our skills and our knowledge with our faculty partners in how to do more of that community development piece, because I think that's going to take a much higher priority in the classroom moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I did like what you mentioned when you said, at what point does AI become a viable teacher to us? So, Ben, in your experience, what are some real life examples that you've probably encountered at FSU where AI has already influenced the operations at FSU and the resident life?
Well, I think, so far what I've seen in the use of AI within housing has been helping to solve problems, right? So one of the things that housing is really focused on right now is people as our main asset. And our staff who, especially those who have been around since 2019, 2020 through the pandemic and have persevered through all of that and have been given additional assignments, who have worked with less, who have, gone through the ringer as it is, and really have shown resilience. Everybody's still waiting to get fully staffed. Everybody's still waiting to be, fully realized in terms of, you know, our people are human resources, not human resources, the policies. Human resources are, like I said, the people. And so where I've seen it come in is enabling my staff to not have to recreate the wheel, right? Or not even having to necessarily, you know, worry about 80, 75, 80% of the structure. They can go and use something like Copilot or Chat GPT or some sort of AI engine and say, hey, can you help me create a lesson plan for this program? Or, hey, can you help me create a program around this? Or can you help me design a bulletin board around this topic? And those are things that take time. Where in the past you might have spent an hour or two, half a day of maybe multiple people working on some things when it comes to things like training sessions. Now you can use these engines to help really give you a solid outline to start with, and then it's up to the human to go back and really polish it and cater it specifically to what you need. Now, I'm still new at all of this, right? I've really just kind of dipped my toes into it, and so I'm very curious because, to Craig's point, it says, okay, here's an outline for a training session, and then for me, it's like, oh, cool, you gave me the starting point. That saved me 2 hours worth of time. And now I can spend 30 minutes polishing it up and I'm good. The people who know how to use it then, though, would go ahead and start asking more questions. Okay, I like this, but can you alter this? Or can you add this? Or can you make these changes to it, to the point where they only have like 5% of the work left to do by the time the AI gets done with it. And so, we don't have any policies in place necessarily in terms of housing for how to use this. One way I could really see it starting to factor in, and I'll be curious to see it. I'm sure different companies have different takes on this, is when it comes to like roommate matching and things like that. And I think there's some privacy issues there. I think there are some ethical issues in terms of where that might land. But I could really see some software companies starting to utilize this and say, hey, you know, look at this cool, or look at this, really vetted process that we have of using AI to match people together. And Craig, you said some really good things, and I want to ask a question because, again, I'm new at all this stuff, so I keep hearing on ads, and you mentioned it, hallucination free. And I have a perception about what that is in my mind when I hear that. But can you define that for me? Just, elevator pitch.
For sure. So when a large language model is hallucinating, what we're essentially meaning is that it is connecting ideas and concepts together as it statistically predicts the next word using its machine learning algorithms, and it's connecting these ideas together in a coherent way, but the ideas are completely not grounded in reality, or they're completely false. They're completely manifested or made up. In other words, the algorithm has determined that these words follow these other words. And as a reader, you're like, well, that sounds legitimate, because again, they're pulling on legitimate sentences and connections, but it's not related to the original query that you inputted. Now, this is a problem with every single large language model that exists. It's one that is actively being worked on, and there are a number of approaches that dramatically reduce the amount of hallucinations. Things like having the first AI answer the question, but before it provides you that output, it just runs its answer through a separate instance of itself. So it's fact checking itself in order to make sure that it's telling you accurate information. That's the way that we can reduce hallucinations. And there's a few other technical ways of doing it. But the key thing is the tracking of hallucinations. because that's really the metric that tells us how good AI is as compared to a human counterpart when it comes to the conveyance of information. Because we already track error rates in the world of humans, like lawyers, engineers, doctors. We have statistics and information that shows exactly how many errors they make. And so now we just need to figure out exactly how many errors and the type and the impact and stuff like that on the AI side. But a lot of people are talking about AI and saying it'll never be a concern because it'll never be perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. It just has to be better than the current thing. And I think AI is already better. Like we already have studies that show AI is already outperforming on SATs and standardized tests and all sorts of other things, the average level human. So we're already in that space where this is happening. And Ben, it speaks back to the comments you were making around how people use it every day, because that's the number one question we get in the AI space, in the consulting space, is how do I use this today? And that honestly, you can't break it. So just jump in and try using it to write a SOP or use it to clean up an email or a conduct decision letter, whatever you're doing. Start using it to get used to that kind of stuff. It's incredibly powerful for lots more than just helping you with writing. For instance, one of my favorite prompts is asking ChatGPT, based on everything you know about me on our interaction so far, what's something about me that I might not know myself? And it triggered this really incredible conversation with the AI that was remarkably introspective, and I actually did learn something about myself that I didn't realize, and I felt seen and validated. And these are all real feelings that I'm getting from this computer. So once you start playing with it today, it becomes incredibly powerful. And that starts unlocking the potential of tomorrow. And that's the conversation I think we need to be having, because this is changing so fast. I don't mean we three need to be having, I mean our industry needs to be having. Right. Because it's changing so fast that now is the time to prepare for what this looks like in 5 years' time. Because in 5 years, it's going to be very, very different than it is today, because this is the dumbest version of AI that any of us are ever going to use. And it's only going to get better from here on out, probably very quickly.
I want to ask or comment or ask or something, just start another line of query based on what you were talking about. You were talking about how, it's helping us in certain ways, but it can never necessarily take the place of some of those soft skills, right? Those things that people get from living around, interacting with, working with, having conflict with each other. And to me, that speaks to the point, something that was really embedded in me as I started my college career, about the analytical mind and being able to take the information that you're being given and essentially doing what AI does and synthesizing the different parts of it to make sense and meaning for you, and then determine how you're going to interact with either whoever's posing that question or whatever situation you're in. And I think that that's the part that I think academia is going to struggle with the most, right? Because knowledge building, for the most part, has been up to humans up to this point in history. And now with this new tool, depending on how proficient people are with it, depending on how it advances, I think it does factor into like the human side of things. And it's interesting. I love the point that you made about how it was a very real moment for you when you started asking those questions of the machine, because it then turned into this really personal thing. And so I'm curious to see kind of where that heads. And oh man, I had another point that I wanted to ask about. You were mentioning in your earlier conversation, so I'm in a doc program right now, and I had a conversation with some of our faculty in a session last night about I'm thinking about doing a qualitative study. And if I do a qualitative study on Zoom like this, right, and our teams, and I pull my transcript and I take those transcripts and I put it into Copilot or ChatGPT, and I say, hey, can you find the themes in here for me? I still done that work. It's doing the coding, and maybe I would have found it, maybe I wouldn't have. But our faculty was really kind of unsure about, maybe not. And so there's this question about, I think, again, to your point, to the original point that you made about the role of AI in academia is, at what point is the programming taking over and the learning not genuinely happening with the student or the learners. So this is all fascinating to me, and I appreciate you taking time to explain.
Before you answer, Craig, you can tell that Ben is super fascinated by this because he has so many questions to ask. And so it's really awesome to just see how excited he is to learn more about this. So that makes me feel really happy.
It's an exciting topic because I think we sense the potential of it, right? We sense that this is a big deal and it's a big change. It's bigger than, it's not like the iPhone or the internet. It's more like the Industrial Revolution or the
Right.
discovery of agriculture. It's a systemic change. And I'll paint a little bit of a picture for you folks right here today. Is artificial intelligence, particularly as it marries to robotics, is incredibly important and powerful because essentially we can take an LLM that has the ability in plain language to figure stuff out and iterate and do a few things like this, and we can load that into a robot in a 3D world, and the robot will then have like an AI-powered brain. And they've demonstrated this by teaching a robot dog to balance on a deflating yoga ball. And they did it in the computer first to train the robot how to do this. And they were able to load this into an actual robot, and it was able to balance on a deflating yoga ball in its first try. And of course, by training in the computer, they could do that really fast because the robot dog can practice balancing on a deflating yoga ball like 20,000 times in a minute. It just depends on how fast they can simulate it. I would not be able to balance on a deflating yoga ball right now. Not that I need to do that, but replace that function with neurosurgery, plumbing, welding, like all sorts of different things. And all of a sudden we can train in the virtual, download into reality, and create a robot that can do many, many different tasks. We can do this today. We need to scale it up and do a bit more work to make it economically viable. We can do this today. Right now, our institutions largely produce graduates that serve our economy. We graduate people that can get jobs and contribute to the global economy through capitalism. Capitalism is fundamentally based on the idea that resources are scarce. We have a limited amount of energy, gold, lithium, etc. Now, I promise this can connect back. If we can send robots to the asteroid belt, asteroid mining has been a thing we've been talking about now for decades. It's been the act of sci-fi, but now we can have a robot, train it to mine an asteroid in a computer, send it to the asteroid. It doesn't matter if it takes 10 years to get there. It's a robot. It's just going to do its thing, and then it's going to come back with resources. That's a fundamental change to capitalism. And then all of a sudden we're in a place where it's like, well, we no longer have scarce energy or scarce lithium or scarce gold. The knock-on consequences of this technology on our society are unimaginably huge. So then in higher education, our job is to serve society by helping humans develop into who they're meant to be and helping them become good people, functioning members of our communities, these kinds of skills and abilities that we need to impart upon our students. The way we do that changes dramatically in this backdrop of asteroid mining that I propose as hypothetical. But this is the path that this technology puts us on. And it's, again, very, very quick because the speed of development is absolutely, you get whiplash looking at how fast this came.
Right.
If you were to take an AI output today and then go back to like 2015, nobody would believe you that the computer was able to do that just by pulling it up on your web browser and typing it in. So I wonder what 2030 or 2035 is going to look like in this tech, but I definitely think it's time to buckle up and embrace the transformation, because if we do it now, it'll be a transformation. If we end up on our heels a little bit, it'll be a bit of a disruption, and I'm hoping for the first one, not the second one.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I'm a nerd, and so like all the sci-fi movies are coming to mind, right? Like you started talking, and actually the first movie that came to mind was Wall-E, and the captain's interaction with the computer versus the co-captain, and then you started talking about mining, so Avatar came to mind, and like all these things, and I'm like, oh, this is all plausible, right? And it's amazing that this creation. And then of course you go to the other end of the spectrum with Terminator and all that stuff, and you start to get a little shaky. But it's exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. And I think the challenge is going to be to continue. There's always been this question about the value of higher education. I think, and especially now, especially in the past couple decades, and I think with the emergence of AI, being able to do a lot of technical things, that teaching and helping to create citizens, is going to be something that we're going to have to learn how to really articulate, in terms of one of the true values of completing adolescence and helping people transition into adulthood. And obviously, we do a lot of that in the residence halls, and we do a lot of it in student affairs, right? And so it's a really intriguing platform and a strange new world. I think that we're a part of, and I guess the more you can lean into it, like you said, the better off we will be, because then you won't have that trepidation. Then you won't be, uh, won't be lack. I don't know. You won't be. I don't know. I don't know what the right word is.
We know it's
but
not. We have a good future. I always like make the distinction between we can pick between Mad Max and Star Trek for our future, and the decisions that we make today are going to decide what path we end up going on. I very much prefer the Star Trek future. Like that's
Sure.
I've got a son. I would really like for him to be on that path. But what I really think you're talking about, Ben, is this comes down to leadership. And at higher education, that's what we do, is we help people become the leaders they're meant to be. And I don't consider leadership a position. It can be that, but it's really a function of community.
Right.
And everybody can perform a leadership function within their community. And that's what higher education does. With artificial intelligence, leadership becomes way more important, because how humans lead other humans in this context of having this non-human intelligence is incredibly important. And the shameless plug that I'll put out here is about 2 years ago, my company published a white paper on leading in a time of new intelligence. And folks can find that on our website, authenticconsulting.ca. And it speaks to the importance of, as human beings, we need to identify our core values for us and our organizations. We need to refer to those values often when we're making decisions, so that the human beings around us understand our why. Why are we making the decisions we're making? Because of our values, the things that we deem much more important. And we have to systematize that as leaders in our organizations to create a sense of psychological safety. Because if you lead by values and you refer to them often, your people start being able to predict what your decisions will be. And when they successfully predict those decisions, they feel safe, comfortable, and confident in their space. And that's critically important in a time of big change. And I think that's the big takeaway from this conversation, is that AI is a big change. And so leaders need to make sure that they're keeping their people intact and keeping their organizations healthy and whole as we go through this change. And there's lots of resources out there to help do it, particularly from our friends and colleagues in student housing, because we've been doing this a long time and we're real good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's pretty much all the time that we do have. So it was really interesting to talk about the benefits and the challenges that AI pose, especially at such an important time, like how Craig mentioned. The future of AI really does look super promising for higher education, but it's also really important to stay adaptable, which is really key. So with that being said, Craig, is there any links, anything that you want to provide to the listeners on how they can find a little bit more information on what we talked about, a little bit more on you and what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, we do a ton of free resources online, and that's at authenticconsulting.ca. And so folks can go there and click over to the resources tab. That's for our white papers. We've got briefing notes on these topics, as well as a weekly blog that we post topics on that help people in leadership roles just navigate disruption in a good way. So those free resources are there. And of course, as a professional, I'm always happy to help out other professionals through NASPA, Northwest ACUHO, all of our wonderful professional associations, RLPA. I want to give a shout out to all these groups. We're stronger together, and I hope people know they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, through my website, through my work, so that I can help them, support them in their work, because together we're going to get this done in a really good way. Thanks very much for having me, Leo and Ben. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, really well said. Thank you so much, Craig, for everything. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ben.
Yeah, we thank you for tuning into the Humans of Campus Housing podcast today. It's always our hope that our conversation has helped you in some way, connected to your personal or professional experiences, or that it inspires you to take this back and continue or further the discussion. If there are any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, please reach out and let us know. And of course, we hope that you will like, share, and subscribe to the Humans of Campus Housing podcast. In this crazy world, please take care out there. Look after yourselves, your students, care for your people, and always find a way daily to refill your cup. A very special thank you to Craig Whitton at North Island College for being here today and sharing your vast knowledge of AI and your perspectives on what the future holds. And we thank you all for taking your time today to spend with us. For Leo and everyone associated with the Humans of Campus Housing, thanks for joining us.